Have you ever wondered why some people can walk into a room and immediately become the center of gravity, while others, no matter how talented or intelligent, seem to fade into the background like ghosts? Have you ever thought about the mechanics of attention itself, how it flows like water, how it pulls around certain individuals while avoiding others completely? This is not about charisma. This is not about luck. This is about understanding one of the most fundamental laws of human power, a law so counterintuitive that most people spend their entire lives doing the exact opposite of what actually works. Today, we are going to explore Law 6 from the 48 Laws of Power. Court attention at all costs. But we are not going to discuss this like a simple rule or a manipulation tactic. We are going to go deep into the evolutionary psychology behind why this works, why your brain is wired to respond to it, and why ignoring this law might be the single biggest mistake you are making in your career, your relationships, and your life. By the end of this exploration, you will see power differently. You will see yourself differently. And you might realize that everything you have been taught about humility and staying in the background is actually a trap designed to keep you powerless. Let me tell you a story about two of our ancient ancestors. Imagine a tribe of early humans, perhaps 50,000 years ago, sitting around a fire. There are 20 people in this tribe. One of them, let us call him Krog, is an exceptional hunter. He brings back more meat than anyone else. He is strong, skilled, and reliable. But Krog is quiet. He does his work and says nothing. He sits at the edge of the firelight, eating his portion, content in his competence. Then there is Zahn. Zahn is not the best hunter. He is average at best. But when Zahn returns from a hunt, even if he has caught only a small rabbit, he makes an entrance. He tells a story. He describes the chase with vivid detail, the moment the rabbit turned, the perfect throw of his spear. He acts out the movements. The children laugh. The adults lean in. Zahn has their attention. Now here is the question that changes everything. When the tribe needs to make a decision about where to hunt next, who do they ask? When there is a dispute to settle, whose opinion carries weight? When it is time to choose a leader for a dangerous expedition, who gets selected? Logic would say Krog. He is the better hunter. He has proven his value through results. But tribes do not work on logic alone. They work on perception. And perception is built on attention. Zahn gets chosen because Zahn is remembered. Krog fades away because in the economy of human attention, invisibility equals non-existence. This is not a bug in human psychology. This is a feature. Our brains evolved in small groups where knowing who mattered was a survival skill. Attention became the currency of social status, and social status determined access to resources, mates, and protection. The person who could capture and hold attention wielded disproportionate power, regardless of their actual competence. This is still true today. It has always been true. It will always be true. Because you cannot change 50,000 years of evolution with a LinkedIn course on authenticity. Now, before you recoil at this idea, before you say this sounds manipulative or shallow, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a brilliant idea that nobody listened to? Have you ever watched someone less qualified than you get the promotion, the funding, the recognition? Have you ever felt invisible despite your competence? That feeling, that frustration, is what happens when you ignore Law 6. You are playing a game where attention is the scoreboard, but you refuse to acknowledge the scoreboard exists. You tell yourself that good work speaks for itself. But good work is mute. Good work sits in the corner like Krog, waiting to be noticed, and it dies waiting. The uncomfortable truth is this. In any human system, whether it is a corporation, a community, or a family, there is a limited amount of attention available. Human attention is the scarcest resource in the modern world. There are only so many hours in a day. There are only so many things the human mind can focus on before it becomes overwhelmed. And in that scarcity, a brutal competition emerges. People who understand how to court attention rise. People who do not, sink. It does not matter if you are right. It does not matter if you are talented. If you cannot capture attention, you do not exist in the power structure. You are Krog, sitting at the edge of the fire, irrelevant. Let me take you to Renaissance Italy, to the court of Cesare Borgia, one of the most feared political operators of his time. Borgia understood Law 6 instinctively. He knew that power was not just about military might or political alliances. It was about spectacle. When Borgia conquered a city, he did not simply occupy it. He staged elaborate entrances. He wore striking clothing. He commissioned artists to paint his victories. He understood that the perception of power was as important as power itself, and perception required attention. His enemies might have had larger armies, but Borgia had something more valuable. He had the attention of Italy. People talked about him. They feared him. They respected him. And that attention translated directly into political leverage. Compare this to his more competent but less theatrical contemporaries. Many of them were better administrators, better strategists, better rulers by any objective measure. But they are forgotten. History does not remember the competent and invisible. History remembers the ones who captured attention. Borgia, for all his moral failings, understood that in the game of power, being talked about is more valuable than being good. Now let us leap forward 500 years. Consider the modern technology industry. Think about Steve Jobs. Was he the best engineer at Apple? No. Was he the best programmer? Absolutely not. There were dozens of people at Apple who were more technically skilled than Jobs. But Jobs understood Law 6 better than anyone in Silicon Valley. Every product launch was a performance. Every keynote was theater. The black turtleneck, the minimalist slides, the carefully rehearsed pauses. Jobs was not just selling products. He was selling attention. And that attention created a reality distortion field so powerful that people would camp outside stores for days to buy a phone that was only marginally better than the competition. Meanwhile, there were engineers at Microsoft, at IBM, at dozens of other companies, who built equally impressive technology. But they did not understand Law 6. They thought the product would speak for itself. They thought competence was enough. And they were wrong. Microsoft had better technology in many cases, but Apple had attention. And attention, in the marketplace of ideas and products, is everything. The engineers who built superior products in obscurity are forgotten. Steve Jobs, who understood that power flows toward those who court attention, changed the world. This is where the twist comes in, the part that sounds wrong but is actually true. Being humble, staying in the background, letting your work speak for itself, these are not virtues in the game of power. They are forms of self-sabotage. They are strategies for losing. Now, I am not saying you should be arrogant. I am not saying you should be obnoxious. I am saying that the cultural narrative around humility is often a trap set by those who already have power to keep you from threatening their position. Think about it. Who benefits when talented people stay quiet? Who benefits when competent individuals refuse to promote themselves? The people who are already at the top. The ones who have already captured attention. They do not want competition. They do not want you to realize that attention is a skill you can develop, a game you can play, a law you can master. So they sell you a story about virtue. They tell you that real talent does not need recognition. They tell you to be patient, to wait your turn, to trust that good work will be rewarded. And while you wait, they are on stage, capturing attention, building their brand, consolidating their power. This is not a conspiracy. This is just how power works. Those who have it want to keep it. And one of the most effective ways to keep it is to convince potential competitors that seeking attention is somehow beneath them. It is a brilliant strategy, actually. It neutralizes threats without any overt conflict. You do it to yourself. You silence yourself. You make yourself invisible. And you call it integrity. Let me give you a modern example that will make this crystal clear. Think about your workplace. Think about meetings. There is always someone in the meeting who talks more than everyone else. Their ideas are not necessarily better. Their contributions are not necessarily more valuable. But they talk. They take up space. They make sure their voice is heard. And what happens over time? They get noticed by leadership. They get remembered. When promotion time comes, their name is at the top of the list, not because they are objectively the best, but because they have courted attention effectively. Meanwhile, there is someone else in that same meeting. This person is brilliant. They have insights that could transform the company. But they speak rarely. They wait for the perfect moment. They do not want to seem like they are showboating. They have internalized the idea that good ideas will naturally rise to the top. And they are invisible. When leadership thinks about promotions, this person does not even register. It is not malice. It is not discrimination. It is the fundamental scarcity of human attention. Leadership cannot promote someone they do not remember, and they cannot remember someone who has not captured their attention. This is the dark truth at the heart of Law 6. Competence without attention is worthless in any social system. You can be the most talented person in the room, but if you have not learned how to make people aware of that talent, you might as well not exist. The game is not fair. The game rewards those who understand how to play it. And one of the core rules of the game is this: attention is power, and power goes to those who know how to capture it. Now, let us go even deeper. Why does this work? Why are humans wired this way? The answer lies in how our brains process information and make decisions. Human beings are not rational actors. We like to think we are. We like to believe that we carefully weigh evidence, evaluate options, and make logical choices. But cognitive science has shown us, again and again, that this is not how the brain actually works. We use shortcuts. We use heuristics. And one of the most powerful heuristics is the availability heuristic. The availability heuristic is simple. Our brains judge the importance of something based on how easily we can recall examples of it. If something comes to mind quickly, we assume it must be important. If we have to search our memory for it, we assume it must be less significant. This is why plane crashes feel more dangerous than car accidents, even though statistically, driving is far more deadly. Plane crashes are dramatic, memorable, and heavily covered by media. They capture attention. Car accidents are routine and forgettable. They do not capture attention. So our brains, using the availability heuristic, overweight the danger of planes and underweight the danger of cars. Now apply this to human interactions. If you are memorable, if you capture attention, people's brains will automatically assume you are important. They will overestimate your competence, your value, your contributions. This is not conscious. This is automatic. Their brain is using the availability heuristic to make a judgment, and that judgment favors whoever is most present in their attention. Conversely, if you are invisible, if you fail to capture attention, people will underestimate you. No matter how good you are, their brain cannot give weight to something it does not remember. This is why Law 6 is so powerful. It is not about fooling people. It is about working with the way human cognition actually functions. When you core attention, you are not manipulating people. You are making it easier for their brains to recognize your value. You are overcoming the cognitive limitations that would otherwise cause them to overlook you. In a sense, courting attention is an act of clarity. You are making the invisible visible. You are translating your competence into a language that human attention can understand. But here's where it gets dangerous. Because once you understand this law, once you see how it works, you face a choice. You can use this knowledge ethically, to ensure your genuine contributions are recognized. Or you can use it cynically, to create the illusion of value where none exists. And this is where Law 6 becomes a double-edged sword. Because the same mechanisms that allow genuine talent to be recognized also allow charlatans to thrive. Think about the modern influencer economy. There are people with millions of followers who have never created anything of lasting value. They have mastered the art of capturing attention. They understand algorithms, aesthetics, controversy, and parasocial relationships. They know exactly how to court attention at all costs. And it works. They have wealth, status, and influence. Meanwhile, there are researchers, teachers, artists, and thinkers doing profound work in obscurity because they have not learned Law 6. They believe their work should speak for itself. They are wrong. Their work is invisible, and invisibility is death in the attention economy. This creates a moral dilemma. If you are a person of genuine substance, genuine talent, genuine value, do you lower yourself to play the attention game? Do you become a showman? Do you learn to court attention even if it feels manipulative or shallow? The answer, uncomfortable as it may be, is yes. Because if you do not, you cede the field to those who have no such qualms. The charlatans are already courting attention. They have no hesitation. They have no internal conflict. They are zon around the fire, telling elaborate stories about their mediocre rabbit. And if you, the competent one, refuse to speak up, refuse to make yourself visible, then the charlatans win by default. This is the trap. The people with integrity often handicap themselves. They think there is something noble about staying in the background. They think attention-seeking is beneath them. And in doing so, they allow the unscrupulous to dominate the discourse. They allow the zons of the world to set the agenda while the krogs sit silently in the corner, certain that their competence will eventually be recognized. But it will not be. Competence without visibility is a tree falling in a forest with no one around. It makes no sound. It has no impact. So what is the solution? How do you court attention without becoming what you despise? The key is intentionality. You must be strategic about attention, but grounded in genuine value. You do not invent accomplishments. You amplify real ones. You do not lie. You frame the truth in compelling ways. You do not manipulate. You educate people about what you have actually done, in a language and format that captures their attention. Think about it like this. Imagine you are a scientist who has made a breakthrough in cancer research. Your findings are published in a peer-reviewed journal. You have done everything right. But here is the problem. That journal has a circulation of 3,000 specialists. Your work, which could change millions of lives, is invisible to the people who make funding decisions, to the media that shapes public discourse, to the policymakers who allocate resources. If you believe your work will speak for itself, it will remain in that journal, read by 3,000 people, and ultimately forgotten when the next issue comes out. But if you understand Law 6, you do something different. You write an op-ed for a major newspaper explaining your findings in accessible language. You give a TED Talk that frames your research as a narrative with human stakes. You collaborate with a science communicator to create a video that goes viral. You are not lying. You are not exaggerating. You are courting attention. You are making your genuine contribution visible to a world that desperately needs it but will not see it unless you make it impossible to ignore. This is the ethical application of Law 6. You are not creating false value. You are ensuring that real value is recognized. And in doing so, you are not being selfish. You are being responsible. Because if your work can help people, you have an obligation to make sure it reaches them. And it will not reach them if you are invisible. Now let us look at a historical example that perfectly illustrates both the power and the danger of this law. Consider the rise of Adolf Hitler. Now, before you react, I am not endorsing Hitler or his ideology. I am analyzing how he came to power, because it is a case study in Law 6 taken to its darkest extreme. Hitler was not the most intelligent member of the Nazi Party. He was not the best military strategist. He was not even the most ideologically coherent thinker in that movement. But Hitler understood attention better than anyone else in Germany at that time. He studied stagecraft. He choreographed rallies with the precision of theater productions. He used lighting, music, and spectacle to create emotional experiences. He understood that people do not respond to policy papers and rational arguments. They respond to symbols, to drama, to stories that capture their attention and bypass their critical thinking. Hitler courted attention at all costs, and it worked. He became the focal point of an entire nation's hopes and fears. And that attention gave him power that he used to commit unimaginable atrocities. This is the dark side of Law 6. Attention is power, but power is amoral. It can be used for good or evil. Hitler's rise demonstrates that courting attention is not inherently virtuous. It is a tool. And like any tool, it can build or destroy depending on who wields it and for what purpose. This is why I emphasize intentionality. When you court attention, you must be absolutely clear about why you are doing it and what you plan to do with the power it brings. Because once you have attention, you have influence. And influence is responsibility. Let us return to the modern world. Think about social media. Social media is an attention economy in its purest form. Every platform is designed to capture and monetize attention. The algorithms reward those who understand Law 6. They reward controversy, emotion, novelty, and frequency. The people who rise to the top of social media are not necessarily the most knowledgeable or the most ethical. They are the ones who have mastered the art of courting attention. Now, you might say, but that is shallow. That is not real influence. That is just internet fame. And you would be wrong. Internet fame translates into real-world power with increasing directness. Politicians now rise to power on the strength of their social media presence. Businesses succeed or fail based on their ability to capture attention online. Ideas spread or die based on whether they can compete in the attention marketplace. Social media is not separate from reality. It is reality. It is the new public square, the new battlefield of ideas, the new arena where power is contested. And if you are not there, if you have not learned to court attention in that space, you are ceding ground to those who have. But here is the most insidious aspect of the modern attention economy. It is designed to be addictive. The platforms want your attention, and they have engineered their systems to capture it as efficiently as possible. Every notification, every like, every comment is a little hit of dopamine designed to keep you scrolling, to keep you engaged, to keep you inside the ecosystem. And this creates a paradox. To court attention, you must participate in systems that are designed to capture your attention. You must play a game where the house always wins. This is the trap of Law 6 in the modern age. You need attention to have power, but the systems that distribute attention are designed to addict you, to drain your time and energy, to turn you into a content machine feeding an algorithm. So you must court attention, but you must do so without being consumed by the attention economy yourself. You must be strategic, intentional, and disciplined. You must use these platforms without being used by them. This is extraordinarily difficult. Most people fail. They either refuse to engage and become invisible, or they engage too much and lose themselves in the pursuit of metrics. The solution requires a kind of meta-awareness. You must understand that you are playing a game, but you must not let the game define you. You court attention for specific purposes aligned with your values, and then you step back. You use the platforms as tools, not as sources of validation. You measure success by real-world impact, not by follower counts or engagement rates. This is the only way to navigate Law 6 ethically in the modern world. You play the game, but you do not become the game. Now let me share something that most analyses of Law 6 miss entirely. There is a difference between courting attention and being desperate for it. Desperation repels. Confidence attracts. When you court attention from a place of neediness, when you seek validation from external sources, people sense it. And it diminishes your power rather than enhancing it. The attention you capture when you are desperate is shallow and fleeting. It does not translate into lasting influence. But when you court attention from a place of abundance, when you are offering something valuable and you are simply making sure people know it exists, the dynamic is completely different. You are not begging for attention. You are commanding it. You are not seeking approval. You are creating value and inviting people to participate. This subtle distinction makes all the difference. It is the difference between a street performer with a hat out begging for coins and a concert pianist selling out Carnegie Hall. Both are courting attention, but one is operating from scarcity and the other from abundance. This means that before you can effectively court attention, you must have something worth paying attention to. You must build genuine competence, genuine value, genuine substance. Law 6 does not work in a vacuum. It amplifies what is already there. If you are empty inside, courting attention will only reveal that emptiness more clearly. But if you have depth, if you have cultivated skills and knowledge and wisdom, then courting attention becomes an act of generosity. You are sharing what you have built. You are making your gifts available to others. And there is nothing manipulative about that. Think about the greatest teachers in history. Buddha, Socrates, Jesus, Confucius. These were people of profound wisdom who understood Law 6 intuitively. They did not hide their insights. They did not wait for people to discover them. They went out into the world and taught. They gathered disciples. They created spectacles and performances that captured attention. Jesus taught in parables, stories designed to be memorable and repeatable. Buddha created elaborate rituals and practices that engaged multiple senses. Socrates turned philosophy into public discourse, engaging people in the marketplace. These were all forms of courting attention. And because their substance was genuine, the attention they captured changed the world. Contrast this with the false prophets and charlatans who also courted attention but offered nothing of value. They too had followers. They too captured attention. But their influence was temporary because it was not rooted in anything real. This is the ultimate test. Attention can be captured through many means, but only attention combined with genuine value creates lasting power. This is why Law 6 must be paired with the internal work of actually becoming someone worth paying attention to. Let us examine another dimension of this law that is rarely discussed. Timing. Attention has rhythms. There are moments when people are receptive and moments when they are not. There are contexts where attention flows easily and contexts where it is nearly impossible to capture. Understanding these rhythms, these contexts, is crucial to effectively courting attention. You can do everything right, but if your timing is wrong, you will still fail. Consider the example of Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh was a genius. His paintings are now among the most valuable artworks in history. But during his lifetime, he sold almost nothing. He died in poverty and obscurity. Why? Was his work not good enough? No. His work was extraordinary. But the art world of his time was not ready for it. The attention of collectors and critics was focused elsewhere, on different styles, different movements. Van Gogh was courting attention, but the timing was wrong. The cultural moment had not yet arrived when his work could be recognized for what it was. Now, you might say this proves that good work eventually gets recognized. Van Gogh is famous now, after all. But that is cold comfort to Van Gogh, who died believing he was a failure. And it is worth noting that Van Gogh's posthumous fame required someone else to court attention on his behalf. His sister-in-law spent decades promoting his work, organizing exhibitions, and building his reputation. She understood Law 6 and applied it to his legacy. Without her efforts, Van Gogh might still be unknown. The lesson here is twofold. First, timing matters. You must understand the cultural moment, the readiness of your audience, the existing attention landscape. Second, if the timing is wrong, you have two choices. You can wait for the moment to shift, or you can actively work to shift it. The latter is more difficult but more powerful. This is what true innovators do. They do not just capture attention within existing paradigms. They create new paradigms that reorient attention entirely. Steve Jobs did this with the iPhone. Before the iPhone, the attention of the mobile phone industry was focused on physical keyboards, on email functionality, on business users. Jobs redirected that attention to touch screens, to apps, to a completely different vision of what a phone could be. He did not just court attention within the existing framework. He changed the framework and then courted attention to the new vision. This is Law 6 operating at the highest level. Not just capturing attention, but defining what is worthy of attention in the first place. But this level of influence requires more than just showmanship. It requires genuine vision. It requires seeing something that others do not yet see and having the conviction to pursue it even when the attention is not there yet. This is the paradox at the heart of Law 6. Sometimes, to truly core attention, you must be willing to operate without it for a period. You must build something in obscurity, trusting that when the moment is right, the attention will come. This takes courage. Most people cannot sustain the effort without immediate validation. They need the attention now. And so they court it in conventional ways, within existing paradigms, and they never achieve anything truly transformative. The masters of Law 6 understand this balance. They court attention relentlessly, but they also have patience. They know when to push and when to wait. They know when the world is ready and when more groundwork is needed. This is not a skill you can learn from a book. It requires experience, intuition, and a deep understanding of human psychology and cultural dynamics. Now let us address the elephant in the room. What about privacy? What about the right to be left alone? What about people who genuinely do not want attention? This is a valid concern. Not everyone is built for the spotlight. Not everyone wants to be a public figure. And there is nothing wrong with that. But here is the thing. You can choose not to play the game of courting attention. That is your right. But you cannot then complain when you lack power and influence. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot refuse to court attention and expect to shape the world. This is a harsh truth, but it is truth nonetheless. If you want to live a quiet life, focused on personal fulfillment, family, and private pursuits, that is a legitimate choice. But you are opting out of the power game. You are choosing to let others make the decisions that will affect your life. You are ceding authority to those who are willing to step into the spotlight. And that is fine, as long as you make that choice consciously and accept its consequences. But many people want the power without the attention. They want to influence outcomes, to have their ideas implemented, to be respected and valued, but they do not want to do the work of courting attention. This is naive. It is wishful thinking. It is a fundamental misunderstanding of how human social systems work. Power and attention are linked. You cannot have one without the other. If you want power, you must be willing to court attention. If you refuse, you remain powerless. There is no third option. This brings us to a crucial question. What happens when everyone understands Law 6? What happens when courting attention becomes so common that it loses its effectiveness? We may be approaching this point in the modern world. Everyone has a personal brand. Everyone is trying to go viral. Everyone is competing for attention in increasingly desperate ways. And as a result, the attention marketplace is becoming saturated. It is harder and harder to break through the noise. This is the paradox of ubiquity. When everyone is courting attention, attention itself becomes fragmented and devalued. No one can focus on anything for more than a few seconds. The average person is exposed to thousands of messages every day, all competing for their limited attention. In this environment, traditional methods of courting attention become less effective. Shouting louder does not work when everyone is shouting. Being more outrageous does not work when outrageousness is the baseline. So what is the solution in an attention-saturated world? The answer is depth. When everyone is competing on the surface, depth becomes the ultimate differentiator. When everyone is chasing virality, substance becomes rare and valuable. When everyone is performing for likes and shares, authenticity becomes magnetic. This is the evolution of Law 6 in the modern context. You still must court attention, but you do it differently. You do it by offering something that cannot be replicated, cannot be commodified, cannot be reduced to an algorithm. This means building real expertise. It means creating work that takes time to appreciate. It means engaging with ideas that require thought. It means being willing to say no to easy attention in favor of meaningful attention. This is harder. It is slower. But in the long run, it is more sustainable. Because attention captured through depth creates loyalty. People who pay attention to you because you offer genuine value will stay with you. People who pay attention to you because you offered them a momentary distraction will leave the moment something more distracting comes along. Let me give you a concrete example. There are two types of content creators on the internet. The first type chases trends. They make videos about whatever is popular this week. They optimize for the algorithm. They court attention through novelty and frequency. And they succeed, to a point. They get views. They get subscribers. But their audience is fickle. When the trends change, when the algorithm shifts, when they stop producing at the same pace, their audience evaporates. The attention they captured was shallow. The second type builds a body of work. They develop a unique perspective. They go deep on subjects that interest them. They court attention by consistently offering value that cannot be found elsewhere. Their growth is slower. They do not go viral as often. But the audience they build is different. It is engaged, loyal, and resilient. These creators have staying power. They build careers, not just momentary fame. This is Law 6 adapted for depth. Now, as we approach the end of this exploration, I want to address the philosophical implications of Law 6. What does it mean to live in a world where attention is power? What does it do to us as individuals and as a society? These are not trivial questions. The attention economy is reshaping human consciousness in profound ways. We are becoming more distracted, more fragmented, more anxious. Our sense of self is increasingly tied to external validation, to metrics, to the attention of others. This is dangerous. When your identity depends on attention, you become unstable. You become vulnerable to manipulation. You become a slave to the very systems you thought you were using. This is the existential trap of Law 6. In courting attention, you risk losing yourself. You risk becoming a performance, a brand, a product. And if you are not careful, you wake up one day and realize that the person you created to capture attention has replaced the person you actually are. So how do you avoid this? How do you court attention without losing your soul? The answer is to maintain a core self that is independent of external validation. You must have an identity that does not depend on how many people are paying attention to you. You must know who you are when no one is watching. This is the internal work that must accompany the external strategy. You court attention, yes. But you do not need it. You want influence, yes. But you are not defined by it. This is extraordinarily difficult in practice. It requires constant self-examination. It requires the ability to step back from the game periodically and remember why you are playing it. It requires surrounding yourself with people who know you beyond your public persona, who can call you back to yourself when you start to lose your way. Without these safeguards, Law 6 will consume you. It will turn you into a hollow shell, endlessly performing for an audience that never satisfies. Think about the celebrities who fall apart under the pressure of constant attention. Think about the influencers who have mental breakdowns when their engagement drops. Think about the politicians who become addicted to applause and lose any sense of genuine purpose. These are cautionary tales. They are examples of what happens when you master Law 6 but lose yourself in the process. They captured attention, but they forgot why they wanted it in the first place. And the attention, instead of serving them, enslaved them. This is why Law 6 must be approached with wisdom. It is a powerful law. It can give you influence, resources, and the ability to shape the world. But it is also a test. It reveals your character. If you are shallow, courting attention will expose that shallowness. If you are insecure, it will amplify that insecurity. If you are genuine, it will magnify your genuine contributions. The law itself is neutral. What matters is who you are when you apply it. So here is the final question, the one I want to leave you with. What will you do with this knowledge? Now that you understand Law 6, now that you see how attention functions as power, now that you recognize the game being played all around you every single day, what will you do? Will you continue to sit at the edge of the fire like Krog, confident in your competence but invisible to those who make decisions? Or will you step into the light? Will you learn to tell your story? Will you court attention in service of something that matters? This is not an easy question. It requires you to confront your beliefs about worthiness, about humility, about what it means to be a good person. It requires you to acknowledge that the world does not work the way you were told it works. Merit alone is not enough. Talent alone is not enough. You must make yourself visible. You must compete in the attention marketplace. And you must do so without losing your integrity, without becoming what you despise, without sacrificing the values that make you who you are. This is the challenge of power in the modern world. It is not enough to be strong. You must also be seen. It is not enough to be right. You must also be heard. And it is not enough to be talented. You must also be remembered. Law 6 is not optional if you want to create change, if you want to protect what you care about, if you want to live in a world shaped by values you believe in. Because if you opt out, someone else will shape that world instead. And they may not share your values. They may not care about the things you care about. But they will have the power, because they understood Law 6 and you did not. So the question is not whether you will court attention. In the modern world, you must. The question is how you will do it. Will you do it ethically, grounded in genuine value and aligned with your deepest principles? Or will you do it cynically, chasing metrics and empty validation? Will you use attention as a tool to amplify work that matters? Or will you become addicted to attention itself, losing sight of why you wanted it in the first place? These are the questions that will define your path. Law 6 is powerful, but it is not deterministic. You have choices. You have agency. And you have the responsibility to use this knowledge wisely. Because attention is power, and power is responsibility. Once you capture attention, you have influence. And influence shapes reality. The question is what reality you want to create. Think about the world you want to live in. Think about the changes you want to see. Think about the contributions you want to make. Now ask yourself honestly, can you achieve those things while remaining invisible? Can you create the change you want while letting others control the narrative? Can you protect what you value while refusing to compete for attention? The answer is no. You cannot. And so you must learn Law 6. Not as manipulation. Not as vanity. But as necessity. Court attention at all costs. But know why you are doing it. Know what you will do with the power it brings. And never, ever forget who you are beneath the performance. Because in the end, attention is just a tool. What matters is what you build with it. What matters is whether you use your influence to create something meaningful or whether you waste it chasing empty validation. What matters is whether you remain human in a game that often rewards those who are willing to sell their humanity for a few more clicks. This is the existential weight of Law 6. It is not just about tactics or strategy. It is about who you are and who you want to become. It is about navigating a world where visibility is survival without losing yourself in the process. It is about understanding power without being corrupted by it. And it is about recognizing that in a world of limited attention, invisibility is not humility. It is surrender. So what will you do? Will you step into the light? Will you court attention for something that matters? Or will you remain in the shadows, hoping that somehow, despite 50,000 years of human evolution, despite everything we know about how social systems function, your work will magically speak for itself? The choice is yours. But choose consciously. Choose with your eyes open. Because whether you acknowledge it or not, the game is being played. And those who understand the rules have an enormous advantage over those who pretend the game does not exist.